Hi y'all, Kraken Latte here. With all this talk of gold making and brutosaurs, I thought it was time to go over different ways you can make gold in WoW. This isn't a step-by-step how-to of every type, but rather a list and brief explanation of what's out there. Maybe you'll learn about something, maybe you'll get some ideas. Maybe you'll know of another one I didn't talk about. Either way, let's take a look at what we got. But first, let's give a warm welcome to my newest patron, Janai. Thank you so much for your support, and welcome to the Kraken crew. Alright, let's get into it. So, these aren't in a super specific order other than how I thought they looked good together on the list. Ones that are similar will be next to each other, and as we move along, I'll make a running list on the right to help you out visually. And to clarify a couple terms, when I say selling, I mean using the auction house or selling directly to another player. When I use the term vendoring, you are selling to a vendor NPC and not a player. I'll also show on screen what professions are usually involved with each type, but keep in mind that not every way to make gold needs a profession. I'll label those as such when we get to them. Number 1. Gathering and selling raw materials. This is a very basic entry-level category, but one vitally important to any server's economy. It is these noble gatherers, both casual and hardcore, who supply the herbs, the ore, the skins, and other raw materials to everyone on their entire server. Of both factions even. From folks just leveling professions, to flippers, shufflers, and crafters, everyone needs materials at some point, sometimes even to just turn in a quest. There are various ways to gather these raw materials, which can include, but is certainly not limited to, gathering herbs and ore from nodes, fishing from water and pools, skinning leather and other animal parts from beasts, looting cloth or elemental items from mobs. You get the idea. If you've ever picked a flower and sold it on the auction house, you've participated in this category, and probably made someone very happy about that flower. Number 2. Crafting and selling. This is a very broad category as it includes all professions that can craft. It includes things like gear, glyphs, flasks, food, you name it. There are a few ways to go about this one too. You can do a sort of targeted approach and pick one type of item, say flasks, and only craft those to sell. Or, you could craft multiple kinds, even from multiple professions, to cover a broader market. In addition to that, you require materials to craft, so you will either buy them or gather them yourself, thus bringing the previous category into the picture. The crafters are the people you can thank for your raid buffs, your alt gear, your glyphs, your bags, or anything else that falls into this category. If it was made by someone else's profession and you bought it, you've seen this market in action. Number 3. Farming and selling collectibles. This mainly includes transmog gear, profession recipes, battle pets, and mounts. I've included all 4 of these items in this section as they are typically obtained in very similar matters and often overlap when farming, though it isn't uncommon that you'll focus only on one of these since they can all be quite an investment. All of these types of items can come from dungeons, raids, open world mobs, vendors, crafting professions, and much more. That's why I've lumped these all together. If you've ever wanted to own that cute little frog pet, or wield that sweet sword, it's highly likely that you could buy them from the auction house. Of course, looking at the collectibles themselves, there are a lot of soulbound items which aren't sellable, but there is still a huge amount that are. Don't believe me? Hop over to your auction house and take a gander at the list of gear for sale. I'd wager a guess that you don't have at least some of those appearances. Collecting is a huge part of this game, and there is certainly gold to be had in these markets, if you have the patience. Number 4. Raw gold farming and vendoring. I've done a video covering exactly what this is in greater detail, so check that out if you haven't already seen it. I've linked it for you in the description below. Either way, let's briefly cover it here and get an idea of where it fits in. Raw gold is any gold that does not require another player to obtain. So anytime you loot a mob that you've killed, no matter where it is, and got some currency from it, that's raw gold. This includes gold obtained from both instances and the open world. Instanced farming, which is done in dungeons and raids, is best done solo due to how the loot system works. On the other hand, open world mob farming is best done in groups to help force spawns and kill faster. As you can imagine, these overlap with the raw materials and collectibles categories, so make sure you look at what items you've gathered before you vendor away. Some may argue that this is not a legitimate method of gold making, but that's a strange argument since this category is how newly generated gold is introduced back into the existing markets. And in fact, this method is more beholden to the old-school non-MMO games where you'd go dungeon crawling repeatedly and vendor all the spoils to get your gold. Number 5. Shuffling and converting. This category includes both the raw gold and transaction-based methods. A shuffle is when you take materials and change them into something else for higher profit. That might not be the best explanation, as crafting fits that description too. But the reason for that is because this is a derivative of crafting, and thus often needs professions to complete. Let's look at some examples for you to understand. A raw gold shuffle would be farming a specific material. We'll use leather in this case, and turn them into crafted gear with a high vendor price, and then vendoring it all. In this case, skinning and leatherworking are both needed to complete the process, but it is raw gold since no other players were involved. Now this changes from raw gold to transaction-based if you decide you don't want to farm the materials and instead buy them on the auction house to then craft and vendor. There is another version of this, using only the auction house to make profit. I like to call it converting so it isn't confused with the other version we just talked about, but the proper term is shuffling. Using the auction house, you could buy a material that could be crafted into another version of itself, but is still in the basic state. For example, cobalt ore being smelted into cobalt bars. In this case, the bars are worth more than the ore since they require an extra step to create. So you'd buy ore, smelt it, and post for a higher price than what you bought it for. You can do the same thing with items that don't require professions to convert as well, such as motes of harmony, which take 10 of themselves to turn into a spirit of harmony. Of course, make sure you take into account how much both versions of the item cost and how many go into them, so you don't screw yourself over. Number 6. Flipping. This is the old-fashioned art of buying low and selling high. This can include any item at all, as it is not profession-related, and this is using only the auction house for both the goods and the profit. This one certainly requires a knowledge of how markets work, especially yours, as it can be a risky business, sort of like gambling. Here's how this works. Let's use current raid gear as an example. This piece, going for a hefty price on the auction house, is posted for lower than the market average. So you'd buy it and post it for either the market price or even higher. In theory, it's as simple as that, but it can be highly competitive, so you must pay attention to market prices, sell rate, and know when certain items will be in season. Such as high item level crafted gear from professions will be much higher demand right before and at the start of a new raid release, but would certainly slow way down many months after. Number 7. Sniping. This is essentially an advanced form of flipping, as it's basically the same thing, but far more intense. A sniper will frequently scan the auction house for items placed way below the market or server average by a certain percent, buy it, and then post it at a higher price. This is separated from flipping, as it's often more aggressive and time-consuming, and is sort of like the mean cousin to flipping. But whether you like snipers or not, they are still creating commerce by purchasing theirs lower-priced items. The gold is still flowing. Number 8. Vendor or convenience selling. A bit more niche, but these are folks who buy items and materials from vendors and sell them for higher prices on the auction house. Any items. It could be those limited quantity recipes from hidden vendors across the world, or it could be the cooking vendor's coffee and potatoes. All this comes down to convenience, and while some might think this is a bit scammy, I guarantee you there are plenty of folks who couldn't be asked to deal with vendors and would just buy everything from the auction house. Why is this important? Well, it's convenient. Number 9. Event farming and selling. This commonly focuses on holiday and Darkmoon Fair events, but can include other events too, like pre-patches or the WoW anniversary. This covers any event that has special items for sale only when that event is active. Often, it includes special currency that has to be farmed specifically from this event, which is why I separate it from the vendor selling category. You could even include time walking as one of these events. These folks buy a quantity of the unique items from the event vendor, wait until the event is over before selling them. Since these items are now only available through these sellers, it's often that they control the prices. And for our last category, number 10, boosting and carries. This category includes any transaction where you pay someone to help you or do something for you. They could be leveling you through dungeons by completing them for you, carrying you through raids for achievements and mounts, or carrying you through raided PvP. All of these are forms of carries, but are also sometimes called boosts, since you can be boosted in level or gear score. Either way, this category is about services rather than goods. It isn't uncommon to see carries for ahead of the curve mounts being advertised, or a plus 15 mythic key carry to get that weekly chest. Whatever the service, it's important to your server's economy as it gets the gold moving and supplies things to players who may not have the time or interest in the challenge, but are happy to pay for the reward. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you have some neat tips or feel like I missed something on this topic, share down below. If you want to see more of me in free-form, unscripted action, check me out on my gaming channel of Latte Tea. The link for that is in the description. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you like my content. And remember, it's never too latte.